$8,000. Gone. All because of one text message. But the sender made a massive miscalculation. Today, we track how a destination wedding shakedown got completely dismantled by a single hidden email thread. Meet Sarah and Chloe, friends for 10 years, college roommates, confidants. When Chloe got engaged, Sarah became the maid of honor. The plan? A week-long, ultra-luxury villa rental in Tuscany. But this wasn't just a party, it was a massive financial commitment, and the pressure started immediately. 6 months out, Chloe hits a snag. She needs the villa deposit fast, $4,000. She asks Sarah to front the cash. Sarah transfers the money. 2 weeks later, another emergency. The caterer needs a deposit. Sarah pays it. She drains her savings to keep her best friend's dream alive. How far would you go for a friend before you ask to see the receipts? Because Chloe wasn't done. She calls an emergency bridal party meeting. She drops a new demand. She wants Sarah and the bridesmaids to upgrade Chloe and her fiancé to first-class flights. She calls it her mandatory wedding gift. Sarah looks at her empty bank account. She refuses. Sarah drew a boundary, and Chloe punished her for it. Chloe kicks Sarah out of the bridal party. She bans her from the wedding. Sarah asks for her $8,000 back. Chloe refuses. She claims the money was a non-refundable contribution. Look at this message. Chloe actually typed the word penalty. She put her extortion in writing. Sarah panics. She bypasses Chloe and emails the Italian venue directly to pull her deposits. The venue responds, "We cannot speak to you. Your name is not on the master contract." Chloe anticipated this. She locked Sarah out of the accounts. Sarah is isolated. She has no venue access, no flight, and an empty bank account. But she still had her bank statements. This wasn't a demanding bride anymore. This was theft. Chloe thought she won. She thought Sarah would just walk away and cry. She severely underestimated who she was dealing with. Sarah didn't argue. She didn't beg. Instead, she opened her laptop, exported her bank records, and started building a timeline. She needed to find out exactly where that $8,000 actually went. Sarah wanted answers. But Chloe struck first. Chloe went public. She posted a long, tearful story to her followers. She claimed her maid of honor tried to sabotage her wedding out of jealousy. She painted Sarah as bitter, selfish, unstable. She completely omitted the $8,000 shakedown. The fallout was immediate. Mutual friends turned on Sarah. Bridesmaids blocked her number. College friends sent angry texts demanding she apologize to Chloe. Sarah was isolated. If a friend kept your money and trashed your name to everyone you know, what is your first move? Because Sarah did the exact opposite of what Chloe expected. Sarah stayed completely silent online. She ignored the bait. She ignored the attacks. She let Chloe talk, and talk, and talk. Every time Chloe posted a new rant, Sarah took a screenshot. She archived the videos. She secured the digital footprint. Then, Sarah found her first major discrepancy. She looked at the date Chloe demanded the first $4,000, March 12th. But Sarah remembered a conversation from a year prior. The groom's family had already secured the location. They booked it 18 months in advance. So why did Chloe need an emergency deposit 6 months out? Chloe realized Sarah wasn't folding, so she escalated. A letter arrived at Sarah's apartment. A cease and desist. It claimed Sarah violated a verbal bridal contract. It threatened a lawsuit if Sarah attempted a chargeback with her bank. It looked official. It sounded scary. Let's look at the legal and ethical trap Chloe just built for herself. First mistake. Chloe took a private financial dispute and made it public. That crosses the line into potential defamation. Second mistake. The legal letter. Sarah looked up the law firm on the letterhead. It didn't exist. Chloe used a template she found online and put a fake firm name at the top. But here is what Chloe didn't know. That fake legal letter didn't scare Sarah. It handed her a weapon. Mailing a fraudulent document across state lines to intimidate someone out of a refund isn't just bad etiquette. It changes the entire jurisdiction of the dispute. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. Sarah needed proof. The Italian venue locked her out, so she pivoted. She dug through her email archives. 8 months prior, Chloe forwarded a menu selection from the caterer. Sarah opened the attachment. She scrolled to the bottom. There it was, the contact information for the actual vendor, not Chloe's middleman email. The direct line. Sarah picked up the phone. She called Italy. She asked a very specific question. She didn't mention the wedding dispute. She simply asked the caterer to verify the balance on the account so she could settle the final payment. The caterer paused. They checked their system. What the caterer said next cracked the entire case wide open. The caterer told Sarah the account had zero balance. It was paid in full, 8 months ago. Sarah transferred her $4,000 for the catering only 2 months ago. And here is the twist. The vendor confirmed the name on the wire transfer. It wasn't Chloe. It was the groom's father. The groom's family paid for everything. The venue, the food, the logistics. They settled the bill almost a year in advance. Chloe didn't need Sarah's money to secure the wedding. She used her best friend as a personal piggy bank. This wasn't a demanding bride throwing a tantrum over first-class flights. This was a calculated double dip. Chloe was pocketing the bridal party's cash to fund her own lifestyle. What went wrong legally for Chloe? She committed the cardinal sin of amateur fraud. She got greedy. If you are going to extort your friends, you never use existing verifiable vendor contracts as your cover story. What she should have done instead, actually book separate, non-essential services with the bridal funds. By claiming the money was for the venue, she tied her lie to a paper trail she couldn't control. Sarah went back to the original text messages. She looked at the screenshots Chloe sent her months ago. The proof that the deposits were due. Sarah ran the images through a basic metadata checker online. The dates were altered. Chloe downloaded the real invoices paid by her future in-laws, edited the dates in Photoshop, and sent them to Sarah. She forged the documents to trigger the panic. Sarah now had the motive. She had the timeline. She had the altered receipts. Chloe thought blocking Sarah from the wedding website would end the fight. But Sarah realized she didn't need to fight Chloe at all. She needed to talk to the people actually funding the wedding. She needed to talk to the groom's parents. Sarah knew exactly how Chloe operated. If Sarah texted the groom, Chloe would intercept his phone. She would delete the message. She would play the victim. A digital attack was too risky. So Sarah took the fight offline. She went completely analog. If you held a piece of evidence that could destroy a wedding, would you fire a warning shot? Sarah didn't. Chloe was still texting mutual friends, bragging about how she handled Sarah. Sarah let her brag. She spent her weekend at a copy center instead. Sarah built a 40-page physical dossier. She created a table of contents. Exhibit A, the initial demands for the villa and catering deposits. Exhibit B, the wire transfers leaving Sarah's bank account. Exhibit C, the forged vendor invoices, complete with the highlighted metadata proving Chloe altered the dates. Let's break down the strategy here. Why print 40 pages when you can send an email? Digital evidence is easily dismissed as hacked or taken out of context. But a heavy, neatly bound physical binder landing on your kitchen table creates an undeniable psychological weight. It looks professional, it looks legally sound, it demands to be taken seriously. But how do you deliver a physical binder to people you barely know? Sarah didn't need to hire a private investigator to find the groom's parents. She went to her refrigerator. She looked at the original "Save the Date" card Chloe mailed out a year ago. The return address didn't belong to Chloe. It belonged to her future in-laws. Sarah didn't need to hire a private investigator to find the groom's parents. She looked at the original "Save the Date" card Chloe mailed out a year ago. The return address didn't belong to Chloe. It belonged to her future in-laws. Sarah didn't need to hire a private investigator to find the groom's parents. It belonged to her future in-laws. The return address didn't belong to Chloe. This wasn't just about exposing a toxic friend anymore. This was about warning a family they were funding a fraud. But here is the twist. Sarah didn't just drop the package in a mailbox. She sent it certified mail. Signature absolutely required. She ensured Chloe couldn't intercept the mail carrier. Only the groom's father could sign for it. The trap was set. The package entered the postal system. Chloe was online, posting her daily updates about her perfect Tuscan wedding. She had absolutely no idea a 40-page bomb was traveling across the country, heading straight for her future father-in-law's front door. Thursday morning, the package arrives. The postal worker knocks. The groom's father answers. He signs for it. He opens the envelope. He expects wedding contracts, maybe a late registry update. Instead, he pulls out 40 pages of pure financial destruction. He reads the cover letter. Sarah kept it completely objective. No emotion, just facts. The father walks into his home office. He boots up his computer. He pulls up his own bank records. He compares Sarah's binder to his actual ledgers. The dates don't match. The amounts don't match. Chloe was charging Sarah for a villa that the father paid for 12 months ago. This changed everything instantly. This was no longer about a demanding bride treating her friends poorly. This was financial infidelity. Chloe lied to her future in-laws. She exploited their generous gift to run a shakedown on her own bridal party. If she would steal from her best friend using forged documents, what would she do to their son's bank accounts after the marriage? Let's look at the 3 mistakes that guaranteed Chloe's downfall. Number 1. Never insult the bankroller. Chloe assumed the groom's parents wouldn't talk to the bridal party. Number 2. Underestimating the victim. She pushed Sarah past the point of compliance into pure retaliation. Number 3. Creating a permanent record. Extortion is hard to prove verbally, but Chloe forged digital documents. She built her own prison. The father didn't call Chloe. He didn't yell. He picked up the phone and called his son, the groom. He told him to leave work immediately and come to the house. The groom arrived. He sat down. His father slid the 40-page binder across the table. The groom opened it. He recognized Chloe's handwriting. He recognized the fake invoices. The wedding was exactly 3 weeks away. Flights were booked. Relatives were flying in from overseas. The pressure to sweep this under the rug was massive. Many families would just pay Sarah off to keep her quiet and avoid the embarrassment. But the groom's family drew a hard line. They told the groom, "Handle this, or we withdraw every single cent of our funding today." Sarah was sitting in her kitchen when her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. It wasn't Chloe. It was the groom. She let it ring twice. She pressed accept. She didn't know if he was calling to scream at her or if he was calling to surrender.
Sarah answered. The line was quiet. Then, the groom spoke. He didn't yell. He sounded completely defeated. He asked one question. Is all of this true? Sarah didn't hesitate. She said yes. She told him to turn to page 4, the forged venue contract. The groom exhaled heavily. He thanked her. He hung up the phone. He had everything he needed. The groom drove back to their shared apartment. Chloe was sitting on the couch. She was finalizing the seating chart. He sat across from her. He placed the heavy binder directly on the coffee table. He asked her to explain the Italian venue charges. What do liars do when cornered? They deflect. Chloe immediately blamed Sarah. She called her crazy. She claimed Sarah fabricated the whole binder out of jealousy to ruin the wedding. But the groom didn't argue. He opened the binder to Exhibit C. He pointed at the digital metadata on the PDF. He pulled out his father's bank statements from 12 months ago. He asked Chloe how Sarah could possibly fake his own father's private banking history. The room went completely silent. Chloe stopped talking. The physical evidence crushed her verbal lies instantly. Notice the strategy here. The groom didn't ask an open-ended question. He presented a closed loop of evidence. If you confront a manipulator, you never ask, "Why did you do this?" They will just invent a story. You ask them to explain a specific, undeniable contradiction. He forced Chloe to argue against math, not emotion. And math never loses. Chloe broke. She confessed, but she tried to justify the theft. She claimed the wedding budget was too tight. She wanted a secret slush fund for luxury excursions during their honeymoon. She thought the bridesmaids owed her for the privilege of attending her big day. She admitted to stealing $8,000, but she didn't apologize for the theft. She only apologized for getting caught. The groom stood up. This wasn't about a honeymoon fund. This was a massive red flag. He realized he was about to tie his credit score, his assets, and his entire legal future to someone willing to commit wire fraud against her own friends. The trust evaporated in less than 5 minutes. He looked at the person he was supposed to marry in 21 days. He didn't recognize her. He looked at the seating chart scattered on the table, 3 weeks before the biggest day of their lives. A lavish destination wedding fully paid for, relatives already packing their bags. He walked into the bedroom. He grabbed a duffel bag. He started packing.
The groom zipped his bag. He walked out the front door. Chloe trailed behind him, crying. She begged him to stop. She promised to pay the money back. He didn't turn around. He put his bag in the car. But here is the twist. He didn't just drive to a hotel to cool off. He parked at the end of their street. He pulled out his phone. And he called his father. He gave his father the green light. Pull the plug. The father didn't hesitate. He became a machine. He called the venue in Florence. He canceled the catering. He canceled the florists. He forfeited tens of thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits. Most families would force the wedding to happen just to save the investment. They chose the exact opposite route. Let's look at why the groom's family made the only correct strategic move. It is called the sunk cost fallacy. People will marry a fraud simply because they already paid for the cake. The father understood the math. Losing $30,000 today is painful, but legally binding your son to a financial predator, that will cost you half your assets in a divorce court 5 years from now. Cut the loss immediately. Chloe was standing in an empty apartment. She panicked. She knew the cancellation emails would hit guest inboxes soon. She needed to control the narrative. If your wedding imploded because you stole from your friends, how long could you keep the lie alive? Chloe tried. She texted the bridal party. She claimed the groom got cold feet and panicked under the pressure. But the groom's family beat her to it. An hour later, an email went out to all 150 guests. It was polite, it was formal, but it didn't offer cover. It didn't say, due to unforeseen circumstances. It read, the wedding is canceled due to irreconcilable financial discrepancies. The groom's father refused to let his son take the blame. He put the truth in writing. The bridesmaids read that email. They looked at the phrase, financial discrepancies. Then, they looked at their own bank accounts. This changed the entire scale of the fallout. Chloe didn't just extort Sarah. Sarah was simply the only one who asked to see the receipts. Chloe ran this exact same scam on the entire bridal party. She isolated them from each other so they wouldn't compare notes. But now, the dam was broken. 5 women, 5 different bank accounts, 1 group chat. The bridesmaids finally stopped listening to Chloe. They started talking to each other. They compared their bank transfers. They laid out the timeline. This wasn't just a bride overcharging her friends. This was a systematic extraction operation. Chloe charged bridesmaid number 2 for a bachelorette yacht rental. There was no yacht. She charged bridesmaid number 3 for mandatory custom dresses. The dresses cost a fraction of the price. But here's the craziest part. Chloe charged 2 different girls for the exact same makeup artist deposit. She double-billed her own bridal party. Chloe tried to stop the bleeding. She sent a frantic voice note to the group. She cried. She blamed the wedding planner for the confusion. She promised to sort it out after the dust settled. But how do you blame a wedding planner when the money went directly into your personal checking account? The bridesmaids didn't reply. They just took screenshots. Let's break down Chloe's fatal flaw in managing her victims. She relied entirely on isolation. A manipulator thrives when their targets do not communicate. By launching a public smear campaign against Sarah earlier, Chloe thought she eliminated the threat. Instead, she accidentally guaranteed that when the truth came out, the entire group would immediately verify the math. The cover-up destroyed the crime. Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a massive text from the other girls. They apologized. They admitted they were entirely wrong to block her. They realized Sarah took the fall for all of them. Then they sent Sarah their own receipts. $22,000 in total, all funneled into Chloe's private accounts over 8 months. But the bridesmaids weren't the only ones doing math. The groom's father was auditing the canceled vendor contracts. He found out Chloe spent thousands of dollars of the venue refund money before the cancellation even happened. He didn't just walk away. He retained a real law firm, not a fake letterhead downloaded from the internet. A real corporate litigator. The father's lawyer delivered a very simple ultimatum to Chloe: sign a legally binding repayment plan for the missing funds or face civil fraud charges in open court. She couldn't manipulate a lawyer. She couldn't cry her way out of a legally binding contract. Chloe had exactly 48 hours to decide her fate. Chloe panicked. She hired her own attorney. She expected her lawyer to fight back. She wanted him to send angry letters to the groom's family. She sat in his office. She slid the 40-page dossier across his desk. Her lawyer reviewed the forged metadata. He reviewed the bank transfers. He didn't offer to fight. He told her she was entirely out of options. What happens when you can no longer manipulate the person sitting across the table? You surrender. Chloe had no leverage. Her lies were documented. Her forgery was proven. She drove to the groom's family lawyer's office. She sat in a sterile conference room, alone. She picked up the pen. Let's examine the legal mechanism that trapped her. Chloe signed a specific document called a promissory note. By signing it, she bypassed the need for a trial. She legally admitted she owed the groom's father the exact amount he demanded. If she missed a single payment, he didn't have to sue her to prove fraud. He could simply take the signed note directly to a judge and garnish her wages. She handed him the keys to her financial future. The groom's family secured their money. But what about the bridesmaids? The 5 women looked at the $22,000 Chloe stole from them. They could have sued. They could have taken her to small claims court. But they chose a different route. They chose total erasure. They didn't text her. They didn't demand apologies. Every single one of them blocked her number, blocked her accounts, and walked away. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about permanent consequence. Chloe didn't just lose a wedding. She lost her entire social infrastructure in 48 hours. The people who celebrated her promotions, the people who traveled with her, the people who answered her late-night phone calls. Gone. She traded a decade of loyalty for a few $1,000s she didn't even get to keep. But there was still one loose end. Sarah's original $8,000. Chloe spent it. The money was gone. But here is what Chloe didn't anticipate. Remember when the groom's father canceled the Italian venue? He negotiated a partial refund on the catering because he canceled exactly 21 days out. The father didn't keep the refund. He knew Sarah blew the whistle. He knew Sarah took the hit to protect his son. He took the refunded catering money. He asked his son for Sarah's routing number. Sarah was sitting in her apartment when her phone buzzed. A direct wire transfer cleared. $8,000 replaced in full. Sarah stared at the $8,000 sitting in her checking account. She didn't sue. She didn't scream. She simply presented the math. Then, a second notification popped up. An email from the groom. It was exactly one sentence. "Thank you for the audit. You saved my life." The groom didn't just cancel the wedding. He erased Chloe from his ecosystem. He moved out the same weekend he packed his duffel bag. He broke the lease. He paid the penalty. He relocated entirely. If you discovered your partner was a financial predator, would you stick around to negotiate? He didn't. He severed every single connection. Chloe was living in an empty apartment. She was facing a massive legal debt to her ex-fiance's family, but she still tried to control the optics. She posted a life update online. She called it a mutual, heartbreaking decision to part ways. She disabled the comments. But the silence was deafening. No mutual friends reached out. Nobody offered sympathy. Let's look at the concept of social bankruptcy. A manipulator survives by controlling the whisper network. They isolate people and feed them different versions of the truth. But Sarah's 40-page binder destroyed that network permanently. You can spin a bad argument. You cannot spin a forged catering invoice. Chloe didn't just lose her friends. She lost her credibility within her entire professional and social sphere. Look at the timeline again. This destination wedding was never a celebration. It was a heist. Chloe used the social pressure of a bridal party to extract capital. She weaponized the fear of ruining the big day to silence any questions about the budget. She assumed the title of bride granted her total financial immunity. She was wrong. Sarah sat in her apartment. She opened her laptop. She looked at the folder containing all the screenshots, the metadata, and the timelines. She didn't need it anymore. She dragged the folder to the trash. She emptied the bin. She realized she didn't lose a 10-year friendship. She eliminated a 10-year liability. The money was returned. The fraud was exposed. The victims were made whole. The war was officially over. Sarah drank her coffee. She finally exhaled. But the fallout for Chloe was just beginning. 30 days passed since Chloe signed the promissory note in that sterile conference room. The first repayment installment was due, $2,000. She didn't send the money. The father didn't call. He didn't text. He executed the exact terms of the contract she signed. He handed the missed payment notice to his attorney. The attorney filed it directly with the local county court. Because Chloe signed a confession of debt, a judge approved it immediately. Within 48 hours, a legal order was drafted. But it wasn't mailed to Chloe's apartment. The order was mailed directly to Chloe's employer. If you commit civil fraud, it doesn't stay in your personal life. Her company's payroll department had to process the paperwork. The HR director had to review a court order proving their employee owed tens of thousands of dollars for financial deception. Chloe walked into work on a Tuesday. Her manager called her into a closed-door meeting. Let's look at the absolute destruction of her professional firewall. Many people think they can run scams in their personal lives while maintaining a pristine corporate career. That is a massive miscalculation. Wage garnishment forces your employer to become your debt collector. It signals to your company that you are untrustworthy with money. If Chloe ever wanted a promotion or access to company accounts, that door was permanently welded shut. The reality finally crushed her. She lost her fiancé. She lost her friends. And now, her boss knew she was a liability. She needed someone to blame. She drafted a massive, 4-paragraph email to Sarah. She accused Sarah of destroying her career. She demanded Sarah call the groom's family to stop the garnishment. She hit send. If someone who stole from you sent you a desperate email, would you read it out of curiosity? Sarah didn't. She didn't even know the email arrived. Weeks ago, Sarah set up an automated server rule. Any digital communication from Chloe's email addresses or phone numbers bypassed the inbox entirely. It went straight to a hidden folder, marked as read, then permanently deleted after 24 hours. Chloe sat by her computer, waiting for a fight, waiting for a reply, waiting for any acknowledgement that she still had power over her former best friend. She got nothing, just absolute terrifying silence. The ultimate consequence of betrayal isn't anger, it is total irrelevance. The timeline closes here. The groom's family audited the venue contracts and secured their stolen funds through forced wage garnishment. The groom severed the relationship entirely and relocated. The bridesmaids recovered their $22,000 and permanently cut contact. Sarah got her money back directly from the groom's father. She didn't have to launch a public smear campaign. She didn't have to post angry response videos online. She just had to collect the raw data, bind it in a physical folder, and mail it to the one person who held the actual financial leverage. Let's solidify the strategy. When someone crosses a massive ethical line and tries to steal your money, do not match their emotional volume. Match their actions with documentation. Loud threats mean absolutely nothing when the other person holds a printed spreadsheet of your forged metadata. You enforce boundaries with math, not emotion. Chloe thought the title of bride meant she owned her friends. She manipulated their loyalty to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. In the end, she paid for that calculation with her engagement, her professional reputation, and every friend she had. Quiet competence beats loud threats. Keep your receipts, maintain the paper trail, and never let someone dictate the narrative when you hold the evidence. If you want to see exactly how to spot a fake legal threat before it ruins your finances, click the video on screen right now where we break down the 3 red flags of amateur extortion. See you there. This story is presented for entertainment and educational discussion. Names and details may be changed for privacy. Nothing here is legal advice.